Can you hear it? Maybe very little.
Yeah.
I need to use this.
Yeah, mahina siya sa high notes. Ano sir?
So that's C. But when I use this,
A.
can you tell the difference?
Yes.
And when you strike it, it sounds more warmer than before you tune it. So when we're dealing about cavity resonance, we can use the tuning fork. Can you hear it? Sorry. But if I use this one, I bet you hear nothing. Okay.
Sabihin pati wood ka
So,
dadaan mo sa ganyan.
if the cavity resonance has a very good coupling with the vibration, then how we call the resonance will coming out. So that should be very important factor when you try to make your lower part of the banduria sounds better. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. Maybe the instrument maker can verify this. Okay, keep going. So before we did the wood selection, after this one we have some equation. Maybe it doesn't useful for you, so we'll go over very quick. But if you think it's useful for you, maybe it's worth for you to copy it or write it down. Okay, the most sound heard by the ear is radiated by the soundboard. That is the top board. And acoustic property for wood used in the back sides and other parts also impact sound quality, but very minor, not too much. The tone quality, physical weight, and aesthetically pleasing are the major concern for the instrument maker. So when you make the instrument, you try to find in yourself, it's do I need to make it beautiful or do I make it sound better? Or can we make it happen at the same time? I think that's some kind of the trade-off. Okay. Now here we dealing some of the equation. The most some of the physical property of the wood have very close relationship with acoustic. It's like its strength, stiffness, like its density, and its acoustic property. So now we are going to talk a little about the density. So everybody maybe know the density of wood is weight divided by volume, but maybe you will know that because the wood have water inside, how we call it moisture content. So the volume and the weight change over time. So when you find a data for a species of wood, when you find the data of the density, please be careful about to understand or try to make it clear. Is that the green wood density or is that the density under a certain moisture content? So that is in same pieces of wood, higher the moisture content, the density will getting lower. So this equation sometimes will make people feel confused. So another one people sometimes use very often is the specific gravity. We will talk about that later. And then when the volume decreases, while MC, that is moisture content decreases, when the water evaporates out from the wood, the moisture content decreases, the density will going higher, the volume will going to be smaller because of the shrinkage. That is the very important factor to cause the problem happen during the drying process of the wood. Okay. Go on. So this is the specific gravity. I'd rather to use this because the weight is often dry. What is often dry? You keep that in the oven until the weight becomes constant. That means all the water has been evaporated out. Then you use the volume of green. The definition of green wood is the moisture content in the wood above 30 degrees. If the wood be very fresh after being cut, the moisture content is close to maybe 100, maybe 200. But the physical property doesn't change over the time of moisture content decrease until 30%. That's how we call the fiber saturated point. You just hear it. You don't need to remember it, but just keep it in mind. The green wood doesn't shrink. His weight will get into grease. But after 30% of the moisture content, then all the physical property change dramatically. Okay. Now, forget about this, but you need to know the aspects because they are going to be very important for you, for someone interested to make the wood instrument, because that's the part of the factor has something to do with the acoustic property of wood. We're already talking about the density. Now is the stiffness. Stiffness is in terms of the Young's modulus or modulus of elasticity, that's MOE. We have a lot of methods to detect it. This one is in the laboratory, so forget it. We are going to talk about the second one. We can use tape tone. Very familiar with the tape tone. Tape tone is a very easy way to measure the vibration frequency of material. But why we need to measure about the frequency? Because we can use the frequency to calculate the MOE. So that equation becomes much simpler, but still forget it. Still too complicated. We are going to try to introduce you another one, much easier. That is the transverse vibration. So the equation come out much more complex, but the last one I'm going to show you the way we use to detect if the dynamic modulus of elasticity is the third one. That's how we call the longitudinal vibration. So all you have to do is use a hammer. Strike on the one end of the wood. Then you can use a microphone. Put it on the other hand. And then you use a free software. Something like a soundboard or oscilloscope. You can download that from all over the world. And then it will tell you immediately tell you what is the frequency, longitudinal frequency is. And then all you have to do is use the frequency and put into that equation. Square of the frequency, length, a square of the length, and density, multiple by 4. That will become its dynamical elasticity and modulus of elasticity. Why we need this? Okay, damping, we are not going to talk about damping too much. Keep going. In general, okay, before we talking about the acoustic property, use density or MOE to do the evaluation. Something we should know is the higher the density, the higher the stiffness. That's why some of the percussion instruments making by wood, they rather to use hardwood. They are not using softwood because the harder, they are more stiffer. More stiffer means it will sustain longer. Okay. But the higher the density means the weight getting higher. You will need more energy to excite it. I will do a very simple demonstration here. Here it's bamboo pieces, and here it's wood pieces, but very thin. And if I use can you hear that? No. But if I do some, sorry. Can you hear that? So if we like to make the soundboard theoretically, the thinner, the better. But if you make your soundboard too thin, another problem is going to happen. One, it will easy to crash. Okay, so for the soundboard, the higher the stiffness but lower the density is favorable. So I'm sorry, we should go back a little while. The higher the density, it's hard to excite it. So because we need the soundboard vibration, the vibration of soundboard come out good. It needs to be light. But if for some woods, for the light woods, the stiffness will be not strong enough. So the elasticity and the density, they go different way. That's something you need to think about. It's for soundboard, we need the elasticity for the wood. The higher, the better. But we still need it's a lighter, the better. So how we do that? If we like to go over, now you can understand, now you should know the elasticity and density or the velocity. We can measure the velocity by means of the frequency. So that's the same thing. So I use or. So the elasticity of the wood and the density will become the acoustic property evaluation, become very useful in the acoustic property evaluation. So how we do that? Do the acoustic property evaluation and keep going. We have, this is first evaluation method. That's how we call the sound radiation. Sound radiation, that is the R, based on that simple equation. So what we need, elasticity and the density. So you can see the rightest one, E over cubit of the density and the square root. That will become the radiation coefficient. The higher the coefficient, radial coefficient, means more sounds will be radiated out. And the second one is the sound impedance. In this morning, some of the speaker or some of the instrument maker talking something about the nuts and the bridge. And the sound impedance means when the energy comes from one media and try to penetrate or transfer to another media, if the sound impedance, the difference for the sound impedance is too big. For example, like the water. The impedance of the water is very slow or very low, but the wall, the brick wall or concrete wall, for the impedance is really high. So the water wave propagate until it hit the brick wall. What will going to happen? All the energy will be reflected back. So for the guitar, you can think something about that. If you use the nuts, have the same sound impedance with the string, then you can tell some of the energy of the string will be propagated and convert to nuts and to neck. So in my mind, I'm not so sure, but I think it's workable. For the nuts, it need to be much higher in the sound impedance compared to the string. Then all the energy vibration, all the energy created by string vibration will be reflected back. But for the bridge, that's another story. If you use the same as concepts, then all the energy will be reflected back from the bridge. Then what's happened? You can see the string vibration very well, but your soundboard is dead. So I think it needs a lot of tests for all the instrument maker to try to find the best coupling for the string, for the bridge. You need to allow some of the energy convert into the soundboard, but not all. You still need some of the energy reflects back. Now keep going. Okay. Please think about, you should Okay, now you should know something about the velocity or density or frequency to get the velocity or the sound radiation coefficients and the sound impedance. Now we can go something a little bit harder. Now, what sound radiation coefficient of wood can tell? The first thing is the large sound radiation coefficient. That means the material can produce a louder sound. The one radiates the loudest sound also is the most stiffness per unit mass. That means lower the density, but higher in the electricity. So if you thicken the board, it will decrease the sound radiation. So the sound radiation coefficient is very important parameter for top board to make sure that the board thickness will be thin but strong enough to support the loading from string with minimum reflection. Okay, keep going. And what is sound impedance? I think this one should be, you should be more interested about this one. The quantity of the sound impedance is important when the vibration energy is transmitted from one medium to the other. If large mismatch between Z1 and Z2, all the energy will be reflected back without any transmission. So think about this. What will happen if the string and the bridge have the same quantity? All the energy will pass through. Or when the sound impedance is a large difference, then all the reflection will reflect back. So it's which one is better? I think it's you need to think about this. Okay, keep going. Here is some of the wood species used very often in the violin or guitar making. I think all you need to know is some of the species. For example, like Sitka spruce and Adirondack spruce, Ingerman spruce, and the Western red cedar. That's what you can see the sound radiance and the. Well, maybe you should pay attention to the sound radiance coefficients. You can tell the Western red cedar have a very good sound radiance coefficient. That's why some of the American guitar makers they like that very, very much. Okay. Here is some of the local wood I got from Riyadh. I'm sorry, I cannot get any information for the first one, Philippine rosewood, even though in the internet. But I would suggest, because in Philippines you have Institute of Forest Research, they have this kind of information. And all you have to do, just put that in the, apply that equation and plug all those numbers. That's very good reference. That's very good start line for the reference. And for the Philippine mahogany, the radiance coefficient is only about 8.2. It's much lower than those softwood we saw. But for the last two, acacia is a very special wood I need to mention about, because in Hawaii they use acacia to make a very high prices ukulele. But in Taiwan we have a lot of acacia. Nobody uses that for instrument. Why? Why not? Because the density is around 1. If you put the acacia into the water, you are going to sink down. In Taiwan, close to 1. But in Hawaii, the density is only about 500. Okay, the last two, I really cannot find any information, but we have the same family in Taiwan. The platina is kind of the bush. I don't think it's good for the instrument. But the jackfruit, that'd be very interesting. In Taiwan, we have some big jackfruit, but nobody cut it. And then nobody used that. So no test information. Okay, go on. Now here's some tips. You can read it over very quickly, because that's I just cited from someone else's literature. So topboard have different requirements than was used in the others. And the spruce has the best use for strength and flexibility for top. The more vibration on top, the louder the sound. Most of the right must be right in thickness. Yeah, we talked about, we already talked this. Going. So, okay. The last one is the bigger the body, the louder the sound. After my speech, probably you can come here to play this. Here I have one small board and another bigger board. You can use the tuning fork to play it. Okay, keep going. I think we're running out of time, but this one is very important. The moisture content in the wood, we just let people know the assets. Okay, keep going. This is the equation, but I think you need to put in mind is the how we call the equilibrium moisture content. That's how we call the equilibrium to the relative humidity. So in Taiwan, it's about the same humidity and the same temperature like Philippines. So the EMC for the wood is around 15 to 20. The fiber, the FSP is around 30. Okay. When the moisture comes down from 30s, wood start to shrinkage, and then a lot of problems are going to happen. Keep going. The red parts, the moisture content range between the red spots, should be the EMC for Philippines. Okay, that's about 14 to 20. Keep going. Okay, now we have a lot of different ways to cut the board. Here I introduce you two ways. One is a quarter sawn, the lower one, and one is plain sawn. Okay, if you like to make a soundboard, the quarter sawn will be much better. Keep going. This is shrinkage. Why the problem we're going to happen during the water evaporation, because the shrinkage is different. In the tangential way, it's much higher. It is about the double of the radial, and the longitudinal shrinkage is the smallest. Okay, and you will see the stiffness under different orientation of annual ring or the grain angle and the annual ring. Okay. We can talk about that if you are interested after this. And some suggestion from the violin or guitar maker. So narrow the grain width is preferred for those boards produced for conifers such as spruce or cedar. Someone's suggestion: if you make violin, the grain width will be around 1 millimeter. Cello is about 3 millimeters, bass about 5, and how about guitar? It's about 2 millimeters in grain width. But for some rim porous hardwood like ash, 4 millimeter to 8 millimeters rim width will be the best. If your rim width larger, the stiffness is getting low. If your rim width smaller, still the same. Okay. And another thing is structural regularity of wood is required either for aesthetics or acoustic reason. Okay. Keep going. So that's why people use how they call the book matching method to make their soundboard. What is the book matching? You open the book, you glue them together. Because if you do that, that will make sure the right side and left side have the best balance, either in the physical property, or in the acoustic property. Okay. Now, this is very important. I think it's an interesting topic. It's the older the wood, the better in the sound quality? Everybody thinks like that. a lot of Chinese, they like to dig out very old wood from the grave or from old building, and then make Chinese instrument. But one Japanese, he did a research. He used 80 or 200, etc. And his research shows that some physical property reaching its maximum at about 350 years of using. That means after that, all the property will be decreases up to 1,300 years. Okay, I think my time is, we just go through all the, that's summarized. We just go over this. My time is up. Okay, thank you very much.